What's going on, guys? It's your bro Ryan here.
And your bro Taylor.
In today's video, we're talking all about credit card mistakes and how we can avoid them together. So let's jump into the video and learn something today.
Stop wasting money on that dumb shit and instead put it in investment. I know it's tempting. You'll spend it and be broke again.
So the average American has a credit card balance over $5,300, but surprisingly enough, a credit score of about 710. So let's kind of figure out why that is. So obviously, with an average high balance like that, people are carrying a balance month to month. And some people are under this misconstrued idea that that's actually helping their credit score. They're like, oh, I'm at a 680. I want to get to that 710. Let me carry a balance. That's simply not true.
Yeah. A lot of people have this misconception that, so you want to use the card, right? So I'll carry the balance from month to month. No, the only thing that's doing is causing you to pay the interest on that card. And actually, if it's high enough balance like that, then it'll hurt your utilization and then it'll lower your score and not raise it.
Yeah.
And according to creditcards.com, about 43 million Americans, 22% of credit card users, carry a balance to improve their credit score. I can't believe that many people are thinking that you want to carry a balance from month to month to improve your credit score.
Yeah.
That doesn't make a lot of sense, but we hope to bust that myth today. So do not do that. Pay your card off at the end of every month. Do not carry a balance. Do not pay interest. Do not help the credit card company.
And the next myth, and this sometimes goes hand in hand, is only making minimum payments. People are, oh, I'm in the clear with just making my minimum payment. And while you should definitely at least make your minimum payment, it's always best to completely pay off that balance.
Yeah, and according to the Federal Reserve, if you only make the minimum payment on a credit card with a 17% interest rate, which is extremely low for a credit card, to be honest, it can take you up to 37 years to pay off that debt. So yeah, and that example is actually based on about $6,000 in credit card debt, which is pretty close to that average. So it's a very reasonable, understandable number. The only exception is, like I said, 17% interest on a credit card is actually pretty low.
Yeah,
most average credit cards are pushing 22 to 25, even 28%. So sometimes even higher. So you're going to expect to pay even more, take even longer to pay that off. And with that example, you're looking at close to $13,000 in interest, which is absurd because your balance was $6,000.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any sense. Do not pay only the minimums, but like Taylor said, pay at least the minimums.
Yeah. Now, number 3, again, kind of going hand in hand, is just simply missing a payment. Like we were saying, at least make the minimum, but ideally you're paying this balance off in full, because missing one payment can drastically drop your credit score. I know when I was trying to buy a house, and I was going through my pre-approval process and everything, and I was getting my risk and everything. I missed one payment, and my credit score dropped like 70 points.
Oh, wow.
It was insane. Now, luckily, they called me, like, your score is way lower than it's been for the past couple months, because it took me a while to find it. But they're like, can you, pay everything off? And they were able to re-pull my score, and it did go back up like 50 points, but it didn't go back up the full 70 or 80 that I lost. Wow. So you can't make up for it instantaneously. It's very easy to lose and hurt your credit score, and it's much more difficult to bring it back up. So that's just something you really have to keep an eye on.
One of the best things you can do is set up automatic payments, but just set it up to make the minimums.
Yeah.
So that way, if you overspend, which hopefully you're not, but if you overspend, you're not pulling everything out of your checking to pay it. It's just taking at least the minimum so you don't miss a payment.
Yeah. And if you're curious, it's not a bad idea to pay it off every week or however frequent you can. There's no negative to that. That's not going to hurt you in any way. Just paying it off as often as you can. I know some people do it every week. That way they definitely don't miss it. Or if they do happen to miss a week, it's not as high balance because they've been paying it off weekly. So things to consider. Find out what works best for you. Set up your reminders.
Yeah, and according to Experian, late payments can remain on your credit report for up to 7 years, and missing a single credit card payment can lead to about a 60 to 100 point drop in your credit score. So just like Taylor said, it dropped his significantly, which you can expect. And then that that problem on your report, when anyone pulls it, they'll see that payment for up to 7 years. So that's pretty crazy. And you just kind of want to look out for that.
Yeah. All right. Number 4 is simply neglecting to go over your billing statement and everything. I know that can be a bit of a tedious task and everything, but making sure that your credit hasn't been taken in any way, or, someone's not using your card for things that you're not aware of, or simply you're paying for something that you weren't aware of, like subscriptions and everything. It's just very good to go over this. It should be a part of your budgeting, and we hope you are budgeting, but either way, simply looking over your statement from time to time can be really beneficial and really help you figure out exactly where your money's going.
Yeah, and banks do a really good job nowadays and have added so many tools to be able to notice if there's unusual spending in a different state, unusually high spending. stuff like that, so they can catch it, alert you, freeze your account. I've gotten those calls before. So that is super, super helpful. But like Taylor said, they're not going to say, oh, you did a new subscription.
Yeah.
They're not going to point out those things. So you do want to go through that report and make sure they didn't miss anything. You're not overpaying. You don't have multiple Spotifys. You don't have you and your wife both pay for one, stuff like that. Save yourself some money, save yourself some headache, and just catch problems early on.
Yeah, exactly.
So number 5, not knowing your APR and your fees associated with your card. So first of all, not knowing your APR can hurt you because, like we said earlier, your card is, you think 17%, but it's actually 25%. Oof. You're going to pay a heck of a lot more interest. Your minimums are going to be different. All of that's going to change. So just knowing it and having it in the back of your mind, you don't really have to know the exact percentage. I don't, but just have an idea so you can plan for that, or just hopefully pay it off and don't have to worry about it. And with your fees, we were actually talking about the other day, Amex is a major distributor of cards, and they've talked about this year they're raising almost all of their annual fees. If you're not aware of that and your fee goes up $100, $200, that could be a big deal. Or the late fees go up and you didn't know that, and you accidentally missed one late payment. Boom, that's a huge fee you got to pay off now out of your pocket. So just being aware of those, trying to avoid those the best you possibly can, that's a big deal.
Yeah. Like, for example, I was traveling abroad recently, and some places don't take Amex. I'm a fan of my Amex card, but some places just simply don't take it.
They're not a fan.
Yeah, so I would sometimes have to use a Visa card I had, and I had to switch it up again because I realized when I looked at my statement that I was being charged foreign transaction fees. It's been a long time. That's just my original credit card, so I kind of forgot some of those fees. But I realized, like, it's not a lot, but, 50 cents here, $1 there for all these
little purchase.
Yeah, every little time I'm swiping this card. That adds up, And now you're looking at your balance like, there's no way I spent this much. Well, you're also paying fees.
Yeah, I did the same thing. We were actually touring around the south or northeast and snuck into Canada for a short period of time. And when we did, I didn't think about it. I just kept using the same card. And yeah, foreign transaction like crazy. And I was like, did not plan that in my budget for travel. So, but it is what it is. You got to deal with it. It's good to know that which card is which. And even if you want, put a little tape across and write little notes to yourself. Make it easy. Go. No foreign transaction fee.
All right, and next is taking out a cash advance. If you're swiping at ATM and you're pulling out cash for it, or you're transferring money from your credit to your checking or something like that, there's oftentimes, or most times, fees associated with that.
Yeah, and just for people that aren't quite aware, a cash advance is a type of transaction where basically you borrow money from your credit card issuer and receive the funds in cash. So yeah, you're basically taking a loan on your credit card, which is kind of unorthodox in my opinion. And cash advance fees can range from 3 to 5% of the advance amount with a minimum of $10 to $30. So that can be a very hefty fee.
Yeah.
And honestly, I could be wrong. Please let us know in the comments if you've used it or you know someone that had a good reason to use it. But I really can't come up with a good reason why you would take a cash advance. Most places you could just use your credit card. And if you need a sizable amount of money, you can go get a loan. Why would you go get a 5% fee plus interest and all this other when you can get a reasonable loan, little to no fees at a credit union for a reasonable interest rate?
Yeah.
So I just don't quite understand why you would use a cash advance. Maybe if you need the money like right now, but again, I still would lean on that less.
Yeah, maybe you're trying to pay bills and you don't have any money in your checking.
You're probably
it's a very dangerous game. Next is just not understanding those 0% interest APR periods. Now, it can be a very helpful thing to take advantage of. Say you have some debt and you need to transfer it over, but be very aware of when that period ends and everything. Because if you transfer over $10,000 of debt, and you're like, oh, I don't have to pay any interest on this. Once that period's over, it's not like, oh, we're going to start charging you interest on whatever new debt you accrue. They're charging you interest on that $10,000 you transferred over. So you have to be very aware of that. Some people are like, oh, it's that old debt, it's old. I got 0% interest on it, and that's that for that debt. That's simply not true.
And number 8 is maxing out your credit card. We've talked about this in a couple of videos, but there was kind of this trend going around where people thought you're supposed to hit your limit. It's called a limit. Like that's your final, like that's the top end. And then they're like, look, I did it. What do I do now? Like, what's the next level? And you're like, no. Like now you got to pay it all off. That's the next step. Yeah. And then your interest is high. Your utilization is high. So it is going to take, you dug that hole and you're going to be in it for a while, typically, unless you're making oodles and boodles of money. But typically you're going to be stuck. Yeah. And so please don't max out your credit card. Your utilization, which is how much you're using, what's your balance divided by your actual limit, that utilization needs to stay below 30, worst case scenario, hopefully. If you go above that and pay it down, that's fine. but you can use a credit card. But when they check it at the end of the statement, it should be less than 30 every time for your best possible credit score. So when people are maxing out, you're at 100.
Yeah,
they don't want to see that. You're risky.
Terrible.
Very risky.
All right, nearing the end of this list, number 9 is just applying for a lot of new credit cards. Every time you apply for any type of credit or loan, it does a hard pull on your credit, at least most times.
Yeah.
And those hard pulls can affect your credit score. It'll bring it down slightly. It's not going to be drastic or anything like, missing a payment, but it's still enough to where you don't want to just do this willy-nilly.
Yeah, interestingly enough, the U.S. News and World Report says every time there's a hard inquiry, your credit score can drop up to 5 points. That kind of makes sense. Basically, the banks or all the evaluators are looking at and saying, all right, it's just a small drop. It's only temporary, but if you apply, it drops a little bit. But if you go apply, it's going to drop it, and it's going to get more substantial because they're like, okay, it just keeps dropping. They keep applying, and it could be risky. So we should put a caveat on that applying for new credit cards too often is usually the problem.
Yeah.
If you've had a really long credit history, then that can actually help your score because now you have different types of credit, you have multiple accounts you're juggling, and they deem you a good borrower because you've had it for a long time and you can handle a ton.
Yeah.
So it can actually be a big pro. It's just too often is the big caveat there. You don't want to do too many too quick.
Yeah, because if they see that you can handle, he's paying a mortgage on time, he's paying a personal loan on time, like a refinance loan or something. Yeah, auto loan. He has a few credit cards, and he's paying all these on time. They're like, wow, this guy's great at it. Yeah. He's a low risk. But yeah, that initial application can be a quick drop.
And if you want to learn more about credit scores, we have a whole video on this, what goes into them, how to improve them. And it goes into a ton of detail. It can help you out there. But going into the very last one is number 10, and that's closing a credit card. I know that kind of sounds confusing because you're like, wait, I've just eliminated one of the risk forms on my report. Shouldn't that benefit my score? But actually, kind of like the point we were just making, the more credit, the more types of credit you have, and the longer you have it, the better you're considered a borrower, the better borrower you are. Yeah. So when you close that account, I guess they deem you as risky because you have, one, your utilization will get, if you have a balance, will get a little higher because you've lost that credit card. Also, say that's one of your longest credit cards. So you've had it for 10 years and you decide to close that account. Now your age, your average age also goes down a lot.
So yeah, for example, if you've had a card that's 5 years old and a card that's 2 years old, you've had credit on average of 3.5 years. If you close the 5-year-old card, your age of credit decreases to 2 years.
So that'll hurt your score because all the factors put together will get a little bit worse. So honestly, for the most part, if you're not going to use a credit card, you might as well just put it in a drawer. Yeah. You don't like it anymore, as long as there's not a lot of fees, obviously. Typically, the no annual fees is going to be good for that. If you're just not going to use it, doesn't give you the rewards, doesn't work in your lifestyle, just put it in a drawer, leave it open. If it is high fees, that's a different story.
Yeah, sure.
This is great information for so many people, especially when you're young, starting out, again, to get ahead of the game. So definitely share this with a friend. Share this with all your friends. Family members that their credit's just not great. You can share this with them, and they might go, oh my gosh, I've been carrying a balance because I thought it helped this whole time. Again, 22% of people do it to improve their credit score. It's insane. Let's educate people together. We learn these tips and tricks as we've been going with our credit. So we're trying to put it out there to you guys as well. So please share this video. If you got anything out of this, please like. If there's something we missed, please comment, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Stop wasting money on that dumb shit and instead put it in investment. I know it's tempting. You'll spend it and be broke again.